I'm Katie Barlow. Tonight, in the courts, former President Trump indicted in the classified documents case. What that means and what he's saying about the charges. Also, a surprise ruling from the Supreme Court on voting rights. See what that could mean come election time. And why Prince Harry was in a London court this week. It all starts right now. We start this week with the indictment of former President Donald Trump. Trump is facing 7 charges in the classified documents case, according to Fox News. A grand jury in Florida found probable cause to believe that the former president committed multiple federal crimes related to the unauthorized retention or dissemination of national defense information, also obstruction and conspiracy. This all stems from a lengthy battle over Trump's handling of government documents that led to the FBI raid at his Florida home last August. Through it all, the former president maintains his innocence.
There's never been anything like what's happened. I'm an innocent man. I'm an innocent person.
And while President Biden and former President Mike Pence were also found to have classified documents, the nature of those documents and the obstruction charge here may be the critical difference. Trump and his legal team have argued that he had the right to declassify documents, but that doesn't necessarily refute a charge for the unauthorized retention of national defense information. National defense information is what the intelligence community has determined would cause damage to the national security of the United States if it's improperly retained.
The real dagger to the heart here is the claims of obstruction of justice, is the claims, we think, the charge of lying to federal officers.
When you have declassification as a defense, then there's really nothing. I mean, he could have had a party throwing stuff in a bonfire and it wouldn't be obstruction.
Now, we still don't know the specifics of the charges. We're waiting for a judge to unseal a copy of that indictment. The former president says he's due to appear in court in Miami at 3 p.m. next Tuesday. So let's deep dive into this with attorney and friend of the show, A. Scott Bolden. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to ask you right off the top, because you have represented a number of high-profile individuals over the course of your career. Sometimes the client is not always easy to handle, but there's a lot of last-minute shakeups that seem to happen in the Trump world, and it's happening again now with his legal team. He's let Jim Trusty go. We just saw him on CNN defending the president, and now Jim Trusty will not be representing him in this case. He and John Rowley have resigned. What do you make of this last-minute shakeup just a day after he's indicted?
Well, these are 2 excellent criminal defense lawyers. I know of both of them, know one of them. And, you know, it's hard to surmise what's occurred here. You know, criminal defense lawyers leave at the right time because they may not want to continue with the client in the criminal defense of the actual trial, but they're defending the client up until indictment. There could be money issues. You know, Donald Trump has a reputation of not paying his lawyers. Donald Trump may not have liked what Jim Trusty said on TV or on any of his media appearances. Kind of hard to tell when you've got a difficult client like Donald Trump, but these things occur. I think the lawyer who's representing them in New York, Don Manges, I think, is going to be taking over that defense, another fine criminal defense lawyer. But we've all had high-profile, difficult clients. The challenge here is going to be, can Donald Trump run for president or any other office while facing not 1, but 2 indictments, 1 state, 1 federal? We'll see.
Let's talk about both of those indictments and how they could move parallel going forward here. The Manhattan District Attorney is already set for trial in March 2024. They seem to be moving pretty quickly there. Of course, 2024 is an election year. How quickly can this case move, understanding that it is involving national security, and those cases sometimes take a little bit more time?
Maybe, but it's a straightforward indictment. At least I anticipate it will be. It'll be interesting to see if it'll be a speaking indictment, where the feds lay out in detail the factual case against Donald Trump, because they don't hold press conferences, because ethically they simply cannot accuse they can accuse the defendant, but they can't say why he's guilty. That being said, the docket in the Southern District of Florida is an expedited docket. It's like the rocket docket in Northern California. And so it's going to move quickly. Remember, in New York, this judge has said he's not going to tolerate any delays. And so Donald Trump, depending on what happens at the arraignment next week, when they set a trial date, most federal judges are going to hold both parties to that trial date. And the feds, in this case, DOJ lawyers, after they indict, they're ready for trial. It's usually the defense that delays it. And so you could have two trials going on, not simultaneously, but one right after another, while Donald Trump is allegedly running for office. I don't think he can do both.
As you point out, this will be up to the judge to set the schedule here. And we now know that Judge Eileen Cannon has been at least initially assigned to this case. She is a Trump appointee. She was overturned by the 11th Circuit related to the search warrant. Do you see any challenge from the Department of Justice, at least off the bat, on her overseeing this case?
They could, but not because she made unusual or difficult or unusual decisions. She was overturned twice. I think what DOJ is trying to figure out now is not whether she's the right federal judge for it. They probably have to live with her, but what rulings could she take or make that would make the prosecution of Donald Trump more difficult? I don't think federal judges have political bends whatsoever. I know the media and our politicals talk about it, but they've got canons of ethics. I think Eileen Cannon is doing the best she can, but if she's making rulings that are unusual or not consistent with the law, both sides ought to be concerned about that.
We understand from multiple public reports there are dual grand juries here, one in D.C., one in Miami. What do you make of the decision to indict down in Miami in this case?
Well, there's a 1970 decision on obstruction of justice where the Supreme Court has indicated pretty emphatically that where the obstruction of justice takes place, that's the jurisdiction. And in this case, you can anticipate that the location of those documents, the lies told by Donald Trump and his team, and the obstruction of justice, the acts or facts that support that, took place at Mar-a-Lago. As a result, the DOJ has chosen the Southern District of Florida as the appropriate jurisdiction. Now, whether that remains in place or not, the judge in Southern District can assert what we call ancillary or supplemental jurisdiction on any other state claims that the feds may bring, or if the bad acts occurred elsewhere, he or she could still hear that case. So we'll have to see. We'll know more when the indictment comes out.
Something we're hoping for at least by Thursday at 3 p.m. We're waiting for the judge still to unseal that. Jim Trusty said
Absolutely.
on CNN even they don't have a copy of it yet. They just got a summary sheet. So we'll keep an eye on it. A. Scott Bolden, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us on the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, still to come here in the courts, a surprising ruling out of the Supreme Court on voting rights. What that could mean for the 2024